look like Indiana Fever president Kelly Christoph is in serious hot waters. Guys, for this one here, we got to go all the way up to Indy.
Chaos erupted in Indiana as the Fever president faced an unexpected online storm. Fans of Caitlin Clark launched a coordinated attack that shook the organization's digital presence. What began as frustration over team decisions quickly escalated into a full-blown fan-led assault. But could this fallout be a result of deep tensions between the Fever's management and a passionate fan base? Or could it be about loyalty and support for their star player, who is at the center of controversy? Join us as we unravel the shocking truth behind Fever fans' reaction. Indiana fans attack. The Indiana Fever president did not delete her Twitter account, merely due to random backlash. Her retreat was the result of being outmaneuvered by the most sophisticated fan intelligence operation ever seen in sports history. What other outlets failed to report is that this was a deliberate, meticulously planned attack spanning 9 months. This was not simple online criticism. It was strategic warfare. Behind it was a carefully coordinated influence network executing the operation with near military precision. The implications are staggering. Every WNBA executive should now recognize that fans have the power to dismantle authority figures with remarkable speed and accuracy. They proved they can strike anyone, at any time, and from anywhere. The timeline alone rewrites the narrative. On October 9, 2024, Kelly Krauskopf made her infamous Apple comment, comparing her team to a brand like Apple. For months, the remark lay dormant, seemingly unnoticed. Then, in July 2025, it suddenly went viral, forcing Krauskopf into digital hiding within hours. That timing is not coincidental. It is the result of calculated planning. The Apple metaphor became the ammunition, but ammunition requires someone to pull the trigger. In this case, the trigger was a coordinated network of Caitlin Clark's supporters, who had spent months gathering intelligence, expanding their influence, and waiting for the exact moment to strike. Context amplified the attack. In July 2025, Sophie Cunningham had just launched her podcast. Caitlin Clark's protection narratives were trending across multiple platforms, and internal tensions within the Fever organization were approaching a breaking point. The fan networks did not merely stumble upon Krauskopf's remark, they weaponized it. What sets this case apart from every other story in professional sports is that it represents the first documented instance in which organized fan activism forced a front office executive into complete digital retreat. This was not about angry tweets or a hashtag campaign. This was strategic intelligence gathering, coordinated timing, and systematic pressure applied to achieve institutional capitulation in less than 12 hours. Analyzing this event reveals a broader phenomenon. Beyond one executive's social media panic, this is the emergence of fan-controlled accountability systems. These networks now wield institutional influence that was once reserved for media corporations and league officials. The balance of power in professional sports is shifting, and the Indiana Fever incident demonstrates that fans are no longer passive observers. They are active players capable of reshaping leadership decisions with unprecedented efficiency. So, why did Krauskopf make a retreat, and what impact does it have on the WNBA? Let's find out. The Krauskopf retreat. The Krauskopf retreat was far more than a moment of embarrassment. It was a historic turning point in the WNBA. It established a model that every professional team in the league will now be forced to confront, because it demonstrated, beyond doubt, that fans possess the capacity to coordinate, strategize, and effectively challenge traditional sports authority. This was not spontaneous chaos. It was a meticulously executed digital campaign that combined planning, organization, and strategic messaging. To fully understand the significance, it is necessary to trace the sequence of events and the mechanisms through which this operation unfolded. The catalyst for this upheaval was the resurfacing of the Apple comment on July 12th. Within a matter of hours, key nodes of influence across Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit began to amplify the narrative. These platforms acted not as isolated communication channels, but as an interconnected network capable of mass coordination. The Caitlin Clark account, which has consistently shaped and reinforced protective narratives around Clark, deployed what could be described as its nuclear option. The underlying principle of this approach mirrored the strategic vision of enduring global brands. Icons thrive because their fan bases actively support and defend them. Apple became a global symbol not just because of its technology, but because Steve Jobs embodied both visionary leadership and star power. In the same way, this single tweet, generating more than 50,000 retweets, became the rallying cry for a coordinated pressure campaign. Importantly, this was not the result of random virality. The spread of the narrative was systematic, involving carefully synchronized messaging across multiple platforms. Twitter influence nodes were constructed to amplify specific talking points. TikTok accounts aggregated content that reinforced the narrative with precise timing, and Reddit communities documented every detail of locker room issues and organizational shortcomings with methodical rigor. This was a fully operationalized infrastructure, purpose-built to create, escalate, and sustain controversy. Stephanie White, Amber Cox, and Kelly Krosk, the Indiana Fever president, were completely unprepared for the magnitude and sophistication of this effort. As Christine Brennan documented in her book, the WNBA and the Indiana Fever did not anticipate the popularity and influence Caitlin Clark would bring with her draft. This lack of preparation left the team exceptionally vulnerable to coordinated campaigns. Every decision and move by Stephanie White and her colleagues would henceforth be scrutinized under an unprecedented level of fan-driven attention. Brennan's account provides documented proof that the Indiana Fever were caught flat-footed, unready to manage the dual challenges of a star player and a mobilized strategic fan network. The power of these networks lies not merely in their enthusiasm, but in their organization, strategic planning, and demonstrated effectiveness. They are capable of applying sustained pressure on institutional targets. Reddit communities were tracking and documenting organizational dysfunction in real time. TikTok accounts functioned as repositories for any perceived slight against Clark, cataloging them with forensic detail. Twitter influence nodes constructed large follower networks with the explicit purpose of magnifying narratives that protected Clark. When Krauskopf's Apple comment went viral in July, this infrastructure did not merely react. It activated with the precision and coordination of a military operation. The fan networks did not passively respond to the controversy. They actively created, amplified, and perpetuated it until their objectives were met. While Kelly Krauskopf faced digital pressure that effectively forced her into retreat, Sophie Cunningham was concurrently developing a concept that might be called the Martyrdom economics model, wherein WNBA fines and sanctions paradoxically increase player market value. But could Sophie protection for Clark beyond the court? Let's find out. Sophie Cunningham and Martyrdom economics. Sophie Cunningham's approach to protecting Caitlin Clark extends far beyond merely guarding her on the basketball court. Her strategy represents a deliberate positioning of herself as the central voice in a new era of player empowerment, one in which athletes can influence both the culture and the economics surrounding their league. Every fine imposed on her by the WNBA does more than punish. It acts as a catalyst, amplifying her influence within the ecosystem that surrounds Clark. In essence, each penalty drives more attention to her actions, which in turn increases podcast listeners, boosts merchandise sales, and strengthens her authority in shaping the narrative of protection for star players. The economic dynamics at play here are striking. In 2025, Sophie Cunningham has been fined by the WNBA for amounts exceeding $2,000. Yet these fines do not deter her or diminish her value. Instead, they appear to elevate it. Following one of her high-profile defensive actions in support of Clark, her jerseys sold out within 48 hours. This rapid sell-through generated an estimated 2 times the value of the fine imposed. The ratio of punishment to commercial return creates a phenomenon that can be termed martyrdom economics, a scenario where the financial consequences of disciplinary actions are inverted into mechanisms for personal and brand growth. Each sanction imposed by the league, rather than diminishing Cunningham's status, amplifies her market worth exponentially, turning disciplinary measures into strategic opportunities for visibility and economic gain. When considering the upcoming games, particularly those in high-pressure venues like the Las Vegas Strip, Cunningham's focus remains intensely personal and performance-oriented. Her approach is straightforward. She does not enter the arena attempting to predefine the outcome or shape the story externally. Instead, her priority is concentrated on hitting her shots, executing team strategies, and maintaining in-game discipline. Extracurricular conflicts or external distractions are secondary, yet they inevitably intersect with the game because of the league's broader enforcement dynamics. The referee's decisions often play a critical role, with inconsistent protections for star players like Clark contributing to tensions that have been escalating for years. Cunningham's response, rooted in loyalty and teamwork, manifests as a form of direct intervention to protect her colleagues, reflecting not only her role as a team player, but also her strategic understanding of how institutional failings can be leveraged for broader influence. The WNBA, perhaps inadvertently, has facilitated a new monetization paradigm in which league-imposed punishments translate directly into player profit. Fans quickly recognized this pattern, transforming every fine against Cunningham into a rallying cry for intensified support. The ramifications extend beyond simple financial gain. They illustrate a structural shift in the relationship between athletes, fans, and institutional authority. Every punitive measure now carries the potential to reinforce audience engagement, amplify the reach of protective messaging, and create economic leverage against the league itself. Cunningham's podcast, a central element of her platform, extends this influence in unexpected ways. It is not merely entertainment, it functions as an intelligence-gathering operation, a mechanism through which she communicates internal team dynamics, highlights organizational failures, and cultivates a loyal audience whose attention can be transformed into tangible economic and social power. The podcast systematically breaks down referee failures, portraying them not merely as moments of player frustration, but as evidence of structural shortcomings. This form of strategic messaging applies public pressure on institutional actors in ways that traditional media cannot replicate. By amplifying her voice through coordinated fan networks and digital platforms, Cunningham can generate accountability and influence that transcends conventional reporting or analysis. Fans do not passively consume this content. They absorb it, strategize around it, and organize their own campaigns, effectively creating a symbiotic ecosystem in which player activism and fan coordination mutually reinforce one another. The implications for the wider WNBA landscape are profound. The Krauskopf retreat demonstrated unequivocally that traditional sports authority is no longer insulated from public influence. Fan networks have proven not only that they can mobilize effectively, but also that they can execute campaigns with precision and sustained impact. In the case of Indiana Fever management, early indicators suggested an organizational shakeup even before Krauskopf's social media withdrawal signaled a vulnerability to coordinated fan pressure. This emerging model is not limited to a single team or incident. It is poised for replication across the league, applying to other star players and organizations. Teams that fail to adapt to this new paradigm risk facing rapid, coordinated campaigns capable of eliciting institutional responses within hours. Traditional sports media, long considered the gatekeeper of narrative control, is increasingly losing its authority. Fan-generated content networks operate with speed, coherence, and persistence far exceeding that of newspapers or televised segments. The network that orchestrated the Krauskopf campaign, included Cunningham's podcast, which reaches over 800,000 followers, sophisticated Twitter fan accounts, TikTok aggregators capable of generating millions of views overnight, and YouTube channels that provide the analytical framework necessary for sustained pressure campaigns. This system represents more than spontaneous social media outrage. It is the emergence of a fan-controlled sports media infrastructure capable of real-time influence over professional sports organizations. Could the fan network be evolving and taking charge? Let's take a closer look. Fan network evolution. Fan networks are evolving rapidly, learning from each successful campaign and developing ever more sophisticated methods of coordination. Their tactics are no longer limited to social influence. They now wield economic power. In recent campaigns, organized fan pressure has included explicit boycott threats. Approximately 75% of Indiana Fever supporters have publicly declared that they will follow Caitlin Clark to any team she joins, immediately halting their Fever ticket purchases if she leaves Indianapolis. This marks a significant shift from social influence to direct economic leverage, capable of affecting team revenue, sponsorship relationships, and the overall stability of the organization. The comparisons to Michael Jordan heighten the stakes considerably. By framing Clark's treatment as akin to mistreating the NBA's greatest icon during his formative years, fans have created a historical lens through which mismanagement appears intolerable. This historical context is being used strategically to justify increasingly assertive campaigns against anyone perceived as undermining Clark's career or safety. Analysis of fan influence mapping reveals a level of coordination across platforms that resembles military precision. The rapid deletion of Kelly Krauskopf's Twitter account, mere hours after organized pressure began, signals the existence of highly structured communication networks. This should serve as a warning to every WNBA team. If a fan network can force the removal of a team president, any executive is potentially vulnerable. The early warning systems are already visible in communities such as Reddit's RWNBA and RI Indian A Fever, where timing, messaging, and strategic coordination are carefully planned. These forums share intelligence on organizational weaknesses, develop consensus on pressure targets, and orchestrate campaigns with remarkable efficiency. What occurred with Kelly Krauskopf was not spontaneous anger. It was the culmination of a months-long, meticulously executed strategy. Now that this approach has been proven, documented, and replicated, it establishes a precedent for future campaigns. The implications extend well beyond the WNBA. This represents the first clear example of fan-controlled accountability systems overriding traditional sports authority through organized digital action. Other professional leagues are watching closely, aware that their executives could be next. Surface-level coverage captures the drama, but it misses the larger revolutionary shift. Organized fan networks now wield institutional influence previously reserved for league officials and media gatekeepers. The real story is not Krauskopf's Twitter deletion. It is the emergence of fan-driven accountability mechanisms capable of forcing organizational retreat within hours. This blueprint will now guide teams across the league. Fans have demonstrated that they can win institutional battles through coordinated pressure campaigns. The Cunningham model, strategic martyrdom through league fines creating exponential brand growth, is poised for replication. Players across multiple teams now recognize that fan loyalty can translate directly into economic leverage over league authorities. Teams aiming to sustain growth and fan engagement will need to adapt rapidly. The Indiana Fever illustrate this model clearly. With foundational stars such as Caitlin Clark and Leah Boston, the organization is positioning itself as a market leader and a brand designed for longevity, comparable to global powerhouses like Apple. Expect to see more players intentionally taking public stances that provoke fines while simultaneously boosting audience loyalty. Expect fan networks to organize more aggressively around narratives of player protection. And anticipate additional organizational retreats when executives underestimate the coordination capabilities of modern sports fandom. Fan networks are already planning their next campaigns, and executives ignoring these developments do so at their peril. The era of fan-controlled accountability has arrived. Following the swift removal of the Indiana Fever president in under 12 hours, no figure in professional sports authority can consider themselves safe. So, what do you think about the Indiana Fever's sudden reaction to the Fever president? Let us know your opinion in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.